Well, there we go. Looks like it's working. Hey, all right. Woo! I'm loving this. Well, how about that? It worked. Let's start a show, shall we? I'm Tom Sinclair. This is Streaming Idiots. Welcome. Glad to have you here on a special World Cup edition of Streaming Idiots. World Cup coming up here shortly, and didn't want to have the Streaming Idiots show in the middle of World Cup. I mean, who would schedule a show that happened in the pregame to the World Cup or in the middle of World Cup? I mean, who would be an idiot? Well, I almost was. So, but my hat tip to France in their defeat of Belgium yesterday. I was rooting for Belgium, but both sides played well, and we're looking for a good match today. England and Croatia here in another hour or so. I'm rooting for England, but it should be a good match. My boys over there, in fact, I don't know if many of you remember when we had the NDI dog on here. You remember the big fiasco a couple of years ago when Panasonic, was it Panasonic? I don't want to call out a company that I may be wrong in. Anyway, a company announced that they had an NDI compatible camera. Well, they were just using the NewTek, whatever the NewTek Connect app was, whatever it was, to make the camera available, which every camera is available like that. So it wasn't really an NDI camera like the NewTek NDI camera that's come out, or the PTZ Optics NDI camera that's come out. Anyway, so we did a parody on that and something called NDI Leash. And I used my Jack Russell Terrier named Rooney. Well, Rooney is named for, yes, that's right, you guessed it, is named for Wayne Rooney. And so we have Rooney running around the house, and the Jack Russell, if you're familiar with the breed, they are jumpers. And this rascal, he can jump. Not that Wayne Rooney was ever one to get that far off the ground, but he did have an eye for the ball and could certainly put it in the net. So that's our hat tip to the English side, and we certainly wish them a lot of skill and speed and stamina today. You know, I was thinking yesterday that Belgium would pull off one of their, stunning comebacks in the last 6 minutes of extra time, but it just was not to happen. I really hoped, oh yeah, and then we get to play some more. We get 2 more periods in extra time, and then maybe go to kicks from the mark, but it was just not to be. It was the day to send the Belgian boys home. Well, they weren't boys, they were the older squad, one of the oldest squads in the World Cup, and I think the French squad is one of the youngest squads. I'd heard that the only squad that was younger was the Nigerian squad, which they were a mess. But we didn't come here to talk about football, or as we would call it here in the States, soccer. We're here to talk about live streaming, and just I guess I got off on the story with my Rooney, the NDI dog, NDI compatible dog. So there we go. So let's see. Oh, somebody is saying that in the chat that they thought the Brits are the youngest. I don't think so. I thought somebody said yesterday that the Nigerians were the youngest, but I'm not an expert. I just play one on the internet. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay, so looks like we've got our intro working today. If you're going, what in the world? Who is this guy and what is he talking about? The Streaming Idiots is a show dedicated to folks that do live streaming, and at some point in your journey in doing live streaming, you're gonna feel like an idiot. Something is not gonna work. Just yesterday you had it all polished and ready to go, and you bring it out today and you press the button and it doesn't work. Well, if you feel like an idiot, then this show is for you, because that's what happens. If you do this long enough, you're gonna screw up. There's no doubt about it. Even the professionals screw up. It's fun funny to watch TV sometimes. What was it in the Olympics when NBC was doing the Olympics last year or the year before, and there was a space of 30 seconds of dead air in the middle of the show when ads were running, when advertisements were running for $1 million, $2 million every 30 seconds. That somebody lost a bunch of money really, really quickly. Holy cow. So idiot mistakes can happen at the highest level. They can happen at the highest level, and the purpose of this show is to help you avoid them. And you get to watch me have them and laugh at me. So for the last, that's the intro to say for the last 2-3 weeks, our intro that you saw just a second ago with the jaws of death, thank you, Martin K., has not been working. I had the shortcuts messed up, and I've got multiple shortcuts going there. And what had happened is I had switched X keys from an XK24 to my new XK80, which, as you can see, is still in the process of being populated with keys. And a hat tip to PI Engineering for these really cool 4x4 buttons that say vMix live streaming software on them. And then you can see I've also got a banana button. The banana button is my cough button. So if I have to cough or sneeze, I can mash that one and it'll turn my mic off, and then I can mash it again. And it's big enough that I can find it easily in that, that panic before a sneeze or a cough. So if you're just joining us, Rich, yeah, we're on the show. We're on the call earlier today because of the World Cup coming up here in a little bit. We didn't want to be live streaming during the middle of the World Cup, as some people apparently will be doing today. Ill-advised, and fortunately, I was able to stumble on the on the right schedule, and so we're doing a little bit earlier show, and we'll see how that goes. Danny wants me to start the whole show again because he had to step out for a soda, so it's not going to happen, Danny, at least not this time. Although I have been known to restart shows time and time again. Anyway, back to the fiasco with the intro. So I upgraded from an XK24, which I was maxed out on. Couldn't do anymore. But I've got how many inputs am I using today? Looks like, let's go down to the bottom of the list. Yeah, 79 inputs. So that's a lot, and not all of those have shortcuts, obviously. But there's some shortcuts that do things that use multiple inputs, and the intro was one of them. And so I've got this video that's the jaws of death that plays all the TVs moving through this industrial scene like a factory, and then the jaws of death open up on me, and that was not working. And that shortcut, it's shortcut whatever it is on the keyboard here. I'm not going to press it. Who knows what will happen. But that shortcut actually fires off, or that key on the keyboard actually fires off 5 or 6 different shortcuts. And let me bring those up here. And in fact, I'll get a screen cap, and you can take a look at them too. So let's screen cap that. I guess we're going to have to get a screen cap of the whole screen because we can't do a screen cap until we get something up there to screen cap. So let's do a local desktop capture. We'll just capture this display. Yeah, that's got it. Okay, so let me fire that one up to you. You can see this is what I'm working with today. I ought to have a cam on my studio because you can see these pictures right here. This is when we first moved in and just threw up a temporary thing. So let's see. So let's what do we want to do? We want to go to shortcuts. We'll go in the back door to shortcuts here. And let's also, before we do that, let's go into this and we'll do a sharpen. And that'll help you see it a little bit more clearly. So let's go in the back door to shortcuts, edit. And Martin Sinclair at vMix has added a new button right here in the top of the shortcuts menu called Find. And I really appreciate that. I don't know whose idea that was, but that says if you've got a key on your keyboard like an X key, and you want to say, well, what button is it? I'm going to click Find, and then I'm going to press the button that initiates my intro, which is the Fade to Black Part 1 button. And that is MIDI note off, channel 1, note 14, velocity 0. Now if I hold it down, it'll give me a velocity of 127. So you can tell that there's some things you can do with that. I think my old Korg Nano control that had the sliders on it was able to use 0 through 127 and could control all sorts of things like that. So I know that note 14, channel 1, note 14 is going to be the intro. So let's go find, yeah, there's note 114, 114, 114, 114, 114, 114, and we'll scroll through the list, and then another 114 at the bottom. So that's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 different shortcuts in vMix that are fired off by this one button on the XK80. And we'll review them very quickly. Fade to black, obviously that just fades to black. And so that's the first thing I want to happen when I move from pre-show to the show, is I want it to fade to black so that when I start the recording, which we'll get to in just a second, I'm not recording the last half a second of whatever was on the screen before I started this whole thing. The next thing I want to do is move in. I want to preview input. That is, I'm moving a particular input into the preview window. In this case, it's input number 18, excuse me, 18, which is a virtual input and is the SI, Streaming Idiots, show open. And what that is an input that has several different multi-views in it. So I'm basically saying, okay, move that input into preview. And then the next one down is a little cute. It basically says, I want you to restart the video that I used for the closing. So whatever I've done in the pre-show or the pre-pre-show, the closing video has restarted and gone back to the very beginning so that when I close out my show, I don't pick up that video in the middle. So I did that just as a way to ensure, in case I did some last minute testing or did something amiss, that video is always in the start position when it comes time. Now I want to fade the input that's in preview, which is my input number 18, virtual Streaming Idiot show open. I want to fade that and put that into the output window. And then I'm going to fade to black so that it fades back in and we can see it and hear it. And that's those first, so that's the fade, there's the fade to black. And then, once I've done that, I want a script to start. Well, the script is right over here in scripting, is this one right here called Start ASUS Record. And this scripting feature is available in the 4K and the Pro editions, and I'll give you a peek at what that is. And it basically is a whole bunch of junk identifying the IP address of the second PC and telling it start recording. So pretty simple there. So we'll close that one out. I've also got, and it says ASUS because I used to use an ASUS laptop to do this and I've never renamed it. And the ASUS stop record, as you can imagine, is the same kind of thing. In fact, everything's the same except the function is stop recording. And I've got some others that I use for the same thing. So let's go back to shortcuts. So number 14 is a script start. And then there's one last number 14 down at the very end, which is input number 78, which is a video. I want that video to play. Now that video is the Jaws of Death video that you see at the opening, and it is an input that is part of, we'll scroll back up to the top here. This one, number 18, it's one of the multi-views in number 18. So it starts, so when number 18 populates that, it starts that. And don't ask me why it's that way. I remember when I set it up, that was the only way I could get it to work. And I think there were some reasons for it, but I don't remember what they were. Now, one other thing that goes on, and we'll go out of this for just a second, and we're going to bring up number 18, which is this one right here, is number 18, I believe, has a trigger in it. Yeah, it has a trigger in it that says when number 18 transitions in, and remember that's part of my shortcut, I want to cut to the main shot after a delay of 22.5 seconds. And so basically what that does is after the Jaws of Death is completed, which takes about 20 seconds, another 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds, something like that, just for a cushion, I want to switch to my main shot. And let's get rid of this guy for just a second. And this is my main shot. Now, the Jaws of Death opens onto a shot that looks like this, but it's not this particular input. And so what happens is if I leave the Jaws of Death input up there where the jaws have opened and I'm now revealed like that, looking like this, it doesn't operate everything else the way I want it to do. For example, with this input, you saw that my lower third came up and a little tag right here. In fact, I'll bring them back up again. There you go. Those come up as part of a trigger when the main shot happens. And so the main shot will have this come up, and then, let's see, let's go back to main shot for just a second. Yeah. And then this'll fade, and then this guy will fade. And maybe it's not going to do it now because we came from a different shot. So let's see, let's just, let's cut back to that shot, and then we'll go back to the main shot. And we'll see, yeah, that pops in, and that pops in, and then in just a second, they'll pop out. Now, at the end of the show, I have another button called outro. I guess the first button should be called intro now. Yeah, there, that guy just disappeared, and this guy's fixing to go. It'd been nice if the timing was right, you know. Anyway, at the end of the show, the Jaws of Death close down on me, but before they do, we've switched another input into program that looks just like this, except one of its multi-views is the Jaws of Death. And of course, the Jaws of Death has a chroma key green portion to the video that is keyed out and allows me to have the jaws close down in on me. Now, I've got lots of choices in that, or let me rephrase that. The Jaws of Death also contains the audio track that has the theme music for this show. Which, by the way, I have a license for, and I think, who was it? Motorola or somebody was using it in a cell phone ad. And I said, hey, that's my song. But I didn't pay for exclusive rights. I just paid to have rights to use it. So anyway, that was pretty funny. So the other thing that I like for the closing, and I don't do it all the time, but that my mic stays active for the closing. And when that happens, that means that I can add a little ad lib, you know, in with the music at the very end of that section of the show. And that's always kind of fun. I enjoy doing that. So that's a quick overview. Yeah, Ken says that your opening is not clean. There's something happening in the first second, like a quick flash of something extra. Well, that may be. That may be. That may be probably this shot right here flashing in, and then the fade to black happening. Yep, I'll have to look at that. I think on the recording, though, the recording starts after that. And so, you know, you guys that watch live, y'all are just crash dummies. You're just there to tell me what I'm doing wrong so that I can get it right the next time. Yeah, who wants to be perfect? That's right. That's right. Welcome, John T. Glad to have you. Who else has shown up? Martin K's here. And Dave Edwards is here. And John T. Ovinas. Dean is here. Welcome, Dean. Glad to have you. Dean's probably on his lunch break down there in Orlando. And Jerome is here. Jerome, how are you, sir? Jerome, I don't know if you guys were at the Streaming Idiots meetup in Las Vegas back in April at NAB, but Jerome was there and had his brother there, and it was good to see them. Yes, indeed. Okay, so we're talking about workflow today, and we're talking about how I'm doing my workflow. As a PC builder, you would expect, oh, Tom's got the latest, greatest stuff. You know, he's got the new process. Intel is sending him processors before they release them to everybody else. NVIDIA is sending him graphics cards before anybody else gets them. Yeah, right. If that were to happen, I would be as shocked as you. And it might. You know, I do have a young friend that works for Intel. Anyway, that's a different story. Actually, what I use is, and this is the challenge of the PC builder in me, you know, part of it's challenge, part of it's lazy, part of it's cheap, is that the PCs that I'm using for live streaming are cast-off equipment. They are old generation PCs, old generation capture cards, old generation CPUs, motherboards. The drives are new. I'll tell you that. The drives are new, and everything's Windows 10. For all you Windows 7's users, Windows 10 is okay. But the CPU that runs this show right here, in fact, you saw it just a second ago, this show right here, is an i7 quad-core processor, but it's a 2600K. Well, 2600, if you know your Intel numbers, 2600 is the second generation of the CPUs. We're up to the 8th generation now, which is, you know, light years ahead. You know, in dog years, yeah, it's a ton of time. But I like the challenge of seeing, okay, you know, what is the slowest, oldest PC that vMix is going to work with? Well, that's what we're experimenting with here. It's not an experiment. We've been doing it for years. I guess you can't call it an experiment anymore. In the second generation i7, and we're running at you know, 20% CPU, but we're cheating. We're cheating, and this is for those of you that have a lot of old PCs laying around and are saying, you know, how can I get the most bang for my buck? Well, with the advent of NDI, divide and conquer becomes a good workflow. And so basically I've said, okay, I'm doing my production here. When I have callers, they're coming into this vMix right here. When I'm bringing in photographs, when I'm bringing in whatever, this is all on a PC, Martin. When I'm bringing that in, it's coming into this PC that's sitting over there in a server rack. But through NDI, it's going out of this PC into another PC that's got about the same specs, an i7 2600K CPU. I think it's got a 1050 graphics card. That was my GTX 1050 from NVIDIA. That was one of my one new part in that one, just because I didn't have an old graphics card I was willing to use. And that guy is handling the streaming and the recording, and he's running at about 25% CPU, and he's going 1080p. I think it's 10. Let's see what the streaming specs are here today. No, 1080p 4.5 megabits per second to YouTube, and 720p 1.5 megabits per second to Facebook. And I don't think, no, we're not doing a Twitter or a Periscope feed today. So he's not stretched, he's not stressed. The main PC is not stretched or stressed, and I've got the ability to bring in other callers, which will add to the load on this PC. If I have my webcams connected, you know, webcams are notorious little CPU eaters. On a 2600K CPU, the webcam takes about 10%. So I'm judicious using that. In fact, when I was having my problems with render time this morning, one of the first things I did was cut that camera out. Didn't seem to make any difference, but it's always the it's always one of the first things I look at is, what's eating up CPU. And I know desktop captures, for example, will eat CPU, and sometimes NDI is a bit CPU hungry. It just depends on what's going on. So somebody's saying you can also use older versions of vMix. What's really funny is I think vMix is, even though it has more features, I think it's actually a faster piece of software now than it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. That Martin is continuing to tweak the code and build in optimization. I know when Windows 10 came out and I upgraded this PC actually from Windows 7 to Windows 10 immediately and had a terrible experience with it, and then reverted back to Windows 7 and recommended, I don't know if you remember this, and recommended that Windows 10 was not ready for production. Martin reached out to me and he said, Windows 10 has got some goodies in it that really make vMix sing. And this is Martin talking now, and he said, and I have designed vMix to work with those things in Windows that will make it sing. So when you feel more comfortable with Windows 10, get it, because it's going to make vMix work better. And it really does. And so if you've got an older PC and you say, I want to run vMix on it, one of the first upgrades you might think of is upgrading from an older version of Windows to Windows 10, if it's compatible with Windows 10, because Windows 10 will be able to help vMix run faster and better. So, big thumbs up for Windows 10, at least in that regard. I was checking this morning because I know yesterday was patch day, second Tuesday of the month, if I recall, is when Microsoft sends out all its patches. And so last week, after last week's show, I was careful to turn off updates. I'm running Windows 10 Pro, so I can turn off updates for I think 4 or 5 weeks. So I wanted to let the patches come out this week and make sure everything was okay before I allowed things to be upgraded. So that's that story. Boy, how did I get off on that tangent? Sorry about that. John T says no problems with patches yesterday. Well, that's good. That's good. Rich is generally the one that clues us in as to what's going on with the patches, because he manages a huge data center of some kind, and I guess everything gets patched at that point. And Dave says, make sure that your upgrade to Windows 10 is a new clean install. That's a good point, Dave. Although this PC right here is actually started out with Windows XP, upgraded to Windows 7, upgraded to Windows 8, reverted back to Windows 7 because 8 was so awful, upgraded to Windows 10, downgraded back to Windows 7, and then upgraded to Windows 10 again, all not clean installs. And so again, why did you do it that way, Tom? Shouldn't you do a clean install? Of course you should. But the idea is, what's the worst that can happen? Let's find out and see what is the worst that can happen. And so far, it's been, what, 1.5 years maybe since I upgraded this PC to Windows 10 for the second time. It's been rock solid. And so I, again, don't recommend it, but I just wanted to see what would happen. It's like, you tell the kid, don't touch the hot burner on the stove. Yeah, you see the scars right there. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I had to find out, is it really that hot? So, yeah, and you probably know some people like me. Okay, so we've got a second PC that's doing streaming and recording. And what I want to experiment with, and this is going to be a jump forward to, I wish I knew which one it was. I've got a PC that I built as a test bed that's got an i3 in it. I think it's a either 7th or 8th generation i3. It might be an 8th generation i3. And it's really fast. It's 4 gigahertz. Gigahertz? Is that right? Megahertz? Anyway, it's 4.0. I forget my designation at that point. And you know, the rest of the specs are typical vMix specs: 16 gigabytes of RAM, NVIDIA graphics card 1050 or better, solid state drive for the main drive, platter drive, spinning drive, hard drive for the second drive, and then other tweaks that we do here. And I'm thinking, okay, you know, number one, I built it to say, is that going to be enough for a fairly simple production to do it all on one PC? And it's gigahertz. Thank you, Jonia. Is that i3 going to be enough for a simple vMix production? Let's say, you know, 12, 15 inputs, couple cameras, you know, a capture card or two. I mean, a capture card or maybe a dongle or two. You know, maybe an NDI input, maybe a vMix call input. Is that kind of light duty? Is this new super fast i3 going to be enough to support that? And the other thing I want to see is, you know, how far will it go? You know, I'm using 79 inputs right here on this particular PC. I've got another 10 inputs on the other PC. They're not really stressful inputs. Some of them are scrolls and the countdown timer, but you know, before the show starts, all of that's over on that PC. So this one's free to do. Yeah, cores and threads, John T, I don't know. And I don't think I have a way of finding out easily. So I'll have to answer that on another show, or else I'll put it in the YouTube notes and post a note in Facebook after the show when I find out. So the question is, will it work as a light duty production PC? How big a production can I get before the performance starts lagging where it's not going to be serviceable? And then the second question is, will it be suitable for a secondary PC? So, for example, my second PC is running a vMix Pro license on it, as is my primary PC. I mean, I'm a vMix reseller. I can get licenses at cost. But what if I had a vMix Basic HD, the $60 license on this second one? Could I do everything I needed to do with just 4 inputs? And the answer probably is yes. So I'll set the i3 PC up probably with vMix Basic HD first to see what it would be and whether it will handle this duty of streaming and recording. I had thought about trying to get that done today, and I realized there were too many other things that I would need to do to set it up. I want to export the format, export the presets and the list of all the settings from this particular edition of vMix running on the second PC, and then import it on the i3 in order to have an apples and apples comparison. Yep. Okay, Martin K says he just bought an 8th generation i5 8500 hex core for a home PC, and curious to see how it compares with the i7 CPUs that are a few generations old. And I think I just shipped one of those. No, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, but it was a screamer, Martin. It was a screamer. Chad says, for your X keys issue, have you used MacroWorks Tools Advanced Reset to Factory Default? That fixed mine. Chad, if you're talking to me, my X keys issue is here, not here. So it was just a matter of me not being me not taking the time to get everything right. So I'll keep you up to date on the i3 experiment as it goes along. I'll keep you up to date with the studio. We really haven't done anything in the studio yet. No, it's pretty much the same. It looks, I don't have a camera set up on it, but actually, you know, I do have a PTZ camera. Let's see if we can make this PTZ camera show the studio. So we're going to zoom out. And in fact, why don't we go to, we'll go to this shot, because this is the way it looks. I mean, this is it. And so we'll pan a little bit. Over here to my right, you can see the lights that are illuminating the green screen. And then here, you can see that I've got just a giant moving blanket hanging from the ceiling, and some really cool hangers. I don't know if you can zoom in on those hangers. Yeah, there you go. They just clip right into the suspended ceiling, so it makes it really easy to bring things in without putting holes in the wall or causing other problems. And then you can see out my front door. The camera can see out the front door, but I can't because the screen is in the way, and the screen blocks some of the daylight. Still having a little bit of problem with traffic noise, and eventually we're going to do some sound treatment on the front door. And there's a camera set up for occasional use. There's another room divider, again intended to help break up the sound a little bit. And that's as far as we can go that direction. So we'll come back around. You can see the same thing, lights there. You can see the second PC here. You're seeing the stream from that guy. And then, of course, you see the, there we go. My lovely, oh boy, I love this mic. The AT897, the Audio-Technica. And you can also see, get a good shot right there of the poles that I use to hang the lights from. And this is something I used in my home studio. And basically it's just a spring-loaded pole. And it's adjustable from anywhere from 5 feet to 10 feet. And so it's set up 10 foot, floor to ceiling. And right now it's just carrying a couple lights. Now you can also see another moving blanket. And that is set up there. Let's see what we can see through that area. Yeah, there we go. You can see just the edge of the server rack with the chair with a moving blanket on it and a sound panel in front of it trying to knock off some of the sound. Somebody's asking what my like and trust is. Well, actually, I've got 3 of them. There's a no, but he keeps falling down. No, like, and trust. And that reminds me that when I talk to you guys, you're going to be in the trust portion when you make a purchase with me, but you're going to have to start out by getting to know who I am and then deciding that you like me, and then eventually you're going to trust me with your money. And we'll get to the commercial part in just a second. All right, so we'll keep going around here a little bit, and we can see there's another sound panel, and you can see behind that is, can you see much? Let's see if we can zoom in on that. Yeah, you can see just the back of a server rack right there of a PC that's under construction. Yeah, that'll be going out next week. All right. And then you can see that I'm a mess. Stuff everywhere. Okay. So we'll hit the home button and then zoom back in a little bit. See if we can't get the shot right. And we'll go back to the shot. There we go. So that was a quick studio tour. Daniel says he loves my super expensive light fixtures. Yeah, it's, you know, it definitely, from my perspective, is the ability to do lots of things without spending lots of money. Because number one, you don't always know that this is something that you want to do long term, so why invest a ton of money in it? The second is you can always upgrade later. And so if I've got, you know, $5 in each one of those light fixtures, and so that's, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got $30 in light fixtures, and then the little photography kit that I got from Amazon that I'll be replacing soon. I've got, you know, $80 in lights. Yes, eventually I do want to upgrade. These are LED bulbs, Daniel. Yeah, we started out with incandescents. It didn't take long back in the home studio to realize that that raised the temperature of the studio by 15 degrees during a show that lasted, you know, 45 minutes. So we went to compact fluorescents, the CFLs, the little curlicue light bulbs, and they helped some with heat, but the LEDs are the bomb. I mean, I can reach out, and I've got my hand on the LED light right now, and I couldn't have touched the compact fluorescent for more than a, you know, and the incandescent bulb, I would have burned my finger if I'd have touched it at all. So LEDs are definitely the bomb, and if you're doing the home LED, I would suggest that you go ahead and get a little extension cord. Yeah, I was just going to make it into the shot. There we go. That will allow you to dim them, and so I can dim those guys a little bit. Yeah, and they're actually pointed at the green screen, so I don't want to dim those too much right now, but I used them other ways when I was in the home studio. Danny said he tried a 4-foot LED shop light, but the clamp-on lights still work better. You just have more flexibility. Yep, yep. And I think PTZ Optics, Paul and Tess did a show yesterday on lighting. If you haven't seen that, you might want to take a look. So there we go. Something else I was going to share with you. Well, remember what it was? Oh, well. Oh, I know what it was. Yes. I wonder if my stinger button is working. Let's find out. No, it's not working. Let's see if we can't redo that real quickly. Edit. Add. Find the key to the stinger. Okay. Function is going to be transition, which is a stinger one. Okay, okay, so let's see if this works. Try this one. Pow, there we go. All right, all right. And this is the infomercial part of the show. Actually, this is the commercial part. You got the info. And again, hat tip to Martin K for the awesome animation here. There's a little railroad track. I should have showed you that before when I was zooming the camera around. There's a little railroad track. We've got those boxes staged off over here to my left, and they just move through, and there's a teeny little railroad train that pushes them as they go through. So it's really nice. Martin shipped that over to me from England. I'm just teasing. I do represent vMix and Magewell and Uon and PTZ Optics and X Keys and Penimation and Bird Dog. We're beginning to expand our offering a little bit. And so if I can help you with any of those products, or if I can design and build a custom streaming PC for you, and it's, you know, is it custom, Tom? Does that mean it's fancy and expensive? Well, it's fancy, yes, but it's expensive. Well, it's more expensive than a Best Buy PC, but it also works the first time, and it's loaded and configured and ready to go. We also rent those, so if you have a need for one short term, we also rent PTZ cameras, so if you have a need short term for something like that, we can do it. Is it cheap? No, it's not cheap, but it's cheaper than buying it, and it belongs to somebody else. So hat tip to Martin K for that cool infomercial portion. I guess I probably need to do a different backdrop for that, but I don't have the the backdrop. Anyway, we'll talk about that. So if I can help you with any of those things, you know, last year, in fact, the last 2 years, we've been the #1 vMix reseller in the U.S. Isn't that cool? I'm so delighted. And I know when we were working, when PTZ Optics was introducing their NDI licenses for their cameras, we were the #1 reseller, I think, other than B&H Photo. We were the #1 real reseller for them too. So it's fun to get into that and to learn about it and to know it intimately, so that when somebody calls and has a question, we can answer the question. Somebody was asking me the other day, said, well, you know, when I buy vMix, should I buy it from you or should I just get it from the vMix website? And I said, well, it may take a few extra minutes to get it from me as opposed to getting it from the vMix website. But if you buy it from me, you get me with it. Plus you get all the backing of vMix and their tech support department for the same price. And the same is true for PTZ Optics and Magewell and Yuan and X-Keys. In fact, we're toying with, and I'd love to get your input on this one, we're toying with doing a 1-day sale every month. That's just a killer sale, like, you know, buy one, get one free kind of stuff. And just have that rotate to all sorts of goods and make it kind of an insider kind of thing. That is, you know, you've got to be watching the show. You've got to be on our mailing list to find out about this stuff. It's not just out there for everybody. Probably end up losing money on it, but that's okay. All right, so we're going to move into post-show. Thank you for watching today. If you've got to pop off to get to the pregame for the big match between England and Croatia, I certainly understand, and I hope my boys in England, the Three Lions, are able to pull it out and go to the finals on Sunday. So on behalf of all streaming idiots all over the world, I'm Tom Sinclair. This has been Streaming Idiots. We hope to see you next week, and we hope also that our outro works when we hit the outro button. Let me show you again on the XK80. We've got a shipment of these due in Friday, by the way. The outro button. Here we go, right there. Woo! All right.